issue in India that most of the textbooks, the educational textbooks, the material, the pedagogy is highly westernized in nature, and they have not taken into account the Indian values, the culture, the heritage, the society, such that the education is not making us proud as an Indian. So that a national education policy will address that issue. There will be a very big focus on Indian culture, Indian value, Indian heritage, Indian philosophy, and the advancement of India in science and technology and education much before the Western, technology has come. Now, I will give you a couple of examples. Circulation, circulation of blood. It is attributed to somebody called William Harvey. William Harvey wrote the treatise on circulation of blood. But actually speaking, in the Charaka Samhita, which was written 2000 plus years old, I don't know exactly when it was written, maybe 2000 or 3000 years ago, the Charaka Samhita, an ancient medicinal Indian text, talked about this blood circulation. Now, we have heard in our school about, when Copernicus telling the Earth is round, and he facing a lot of perjury and lot of issues because of the fact that he brought this concept. But in many of the Indian shastras, it was written of Bhugolam. Bhugolam is the round Earth. So these are things that we probably do not know. Maybe the Western world does not know, but these things had already been there in India. So the new education policy will, one, address this, make us proud of being an Indian, focus on the Indian culture, the Indian values, the Indian philosophy, the Indian heritage, as also the various advancements in Indian advancements in science and technology. The second thing is about the quality. Yeah, I will come to the quality in detail on how this NEP proposes to address. We know, in India, there are 5,000 plus engineering colleges. You are an engineering college, 5,000 plus engineering colleges are there in India. The National Board of Accreditation chairman, NBA, told in one seminar when we were both speakers that barely 200 of them have got the quality. So there is a huge gap with respect to the quality. See, we may have 1,000 universities, we may have 50,000 colleges, engineering, arts, humanities, social sciences, medical, dental, pharmacy. 50,000 colleges are there, 1,000 universities are there, but the number who are maintaining the quality is very, very poor. Very small number, maybe a less than say 10 or 20, not even 10% perhaps. So it's a major issue. The quality is really lacking in majority of several engineering colleges. It is not there. Now, another issue that we are facing is that, there is a lopsided development. In Tamil Nadu, we have more engineering seats than the supply. Every year, more than 1 lakh seats are getting vacant in Anna University. If you take deemed universities, it may be even more. So the supply is double. The supply is double the demand. But you go to some other state like Chhattisgarh, the demand is high, but the supply is very low. There are maybe 5 or 10 or 20 engineering colleges. I'm just giving you an example. So there is a problem of lack of Indian values. There is a problem of quality. There is a problem of equity. There is another problem that many people, many students who go to school, they go to 10th standard, 12th standard, very few are going into higher education. This is called by what is known as a gross enrollment ratio, GER. That means out of 100 students who are passing plus 2 or 10th, only 26 of them are going on to higher education. Higher education means it could be anything, BTech, BE, or BA, BSc, BCom, BBA, MBBS, BDS, whatever. But that percentage is only 26. And the idea is this number has to increase up to at least 45 to 50, because even in the Western countries like America or China, the gross enrollment ratio or the GER is perhaps a little more than 50. So that means out of 100 people who are coming, 50 of them are going for higher education. The other 50 may go for lower level jobs, vocational jobs, becoming a plumber or an electrician or a mason. You don't need a college degree to become a plumber, electrician, or a mason, and so on, or a driver or something like that. So that is a trend. And NEP hopes to address this completely in every way possible. Now, how do we address this gap? I already told you that the quality is a very big problem. There's a huge problem in quality. If you take quality, I'll give you another example. Take placement. If you see the number of NASCOM, the body that is covering the entire IT industry, every year in the IT industry, 1 million students are joining the IT industry in various capacities. But NASCOM estimates that only barely 20 to 25% of them are actually employable. The remaining 75%, NASCOM has to do a lot of work. NASCOM means the companies, Infosys, Wipro, Cognizant, TCS. They have to do a lot of work to improve the quality of these graduates by giving them special courses, giving them training programs, skill development programs, finishing school. So it's a very serious issue. At least 70 out of 100 percent, only 25% are employable. So how do we improve that? The answer is improving the capabilities of the students, improving outcomes of the students, giving them flexible learning paths, integrating all kind of disciplines, removing this in disciplines, improving, making the entire pedagogy and the education more experiential, practical, holistic, inquiry driven, integrated, discovery oriented, learner centered, discussion based, and flexible. So we are moving on to an education which is outcome based. We are able to measure how the students are able to learn, and that involves having more projects, mini projects, experiential programs, internships, trainings, so that we are actually going on to that. Now I'll give you an example. you know you are learning, say, 6 subjects or and 2 labs, right? In every semester, an engineering student goes through 6 subjects and 2 labs. Moving forward, what will happen is there will be no 2 labs. There will be 6 subjects or 5 subjects depending upon the semester, and each subject will have a practical component, a lab component, a mini project component, a practical and experiential component, and where you are actually learning to apply what you have studied. You are discovering things, figuring out things, and that will be very flexible, learner centric, and more of adaptable. This is what is going to happen in the future. No labs will be there. All the courses will have embedded labs or component labs. So every course, you are learning an operating system course, maybe 30% will be based on lab exercises, mini project that you are developing. You are having a VLSI course. Suppose you are an electronic student, you are having a VLSI course. If you have a VLSI course, you may be designing a circuit, and that designing the VLSI circuit may be 30 to 40% of your grade. You may be a mechanical student, maybe doing theory of machines, but you will be probably developing a car, or a more designing something that will give you the make so that kind of change is expected when this national education policy comes. Now we are also going to see a lot of flexibility. Flexibility means, to give you an example, many students come and tell, I am not good in engineering. I'm sure you would have also, some of you will also say that, okay, I am also not very good in engineering, and so on. Maybe may not be, but the idea is, the concept is like this. You study for 1 year, you may get a certificate. You study for 2 years, you may get a diploma. 3 years, you may get a degree. So these kind of flexible options are coming. And there could be also free flow. You study for a certificate for 1 year, you get that certificate, and then you can change to some other field that you are interested in, and the credits that you got for that 1 year, you may be able to use some of it, transfer some of it, or store it in some sort of, in what is known as an academic bank of credits. So the focus will be on experience, conceptual understanding, no mugging up, no writing exams. Exams may vanish. It will be more of evaluations which are practical oriented. uh, to give you an example, if you are doing a VLSI course, your no end semester exam, how you have made design the circuit, how the circuit performs in the certain critical, that will be your evaluation. Writing a operating system, you have developed a loader or a linker for the operating system, that will be the evaluation. No written exam, what is OS, what is the meaning, all this is not there already. We have implemented many of these things because we have the flexibility and autonomy. And no wonder, because our curriculum is very fast. Amrita Vishwavidyapeetham is today India's number one private university. Most of the courses have component labs. So we have already implemented, but the NEP, the National Education Policy, will make it somewhat mandatory for everybody to go for that. Now, there will be a lot of use of technology. Technology will become very, very all pervasive. Everywhere and anywhere, technology will be used. The focus will shift from examinations to actual practice and projects. And we will also think about the Indian values, the Indian traditions, the ethical dimensions, the values, all these things will be part of the system. And it is quite likely that we will have life skills programs, which is very important. The reason I will tell you, I already told you, 100 engineering graduates are joining Infosys. Only 25 of them are good and employable. The other 75, you have to train them. They don't have life skills. Some people call it soft skills. I think soft skill is not a good word. I prefer to call it life skills. They have to work in a group. They are not good in communication, they are not good in collaboration, they are not good in networking, teamwork. They are not they don't understand things, they don't want to work with others, they work in silos. All these will change because the NEP will ensure these things will come through. Yeah. Now, the how it is going to affect the faculty. The faculty, definitely there is going to be a huge change for the faculty. And if faculty are attending this event, my only recommendation is adapt quickly, adapt fast, embrace the technology, embrace the change. These are very, very important. We have to embrace technology, embrace change, and always upskill ourselves, improve ourselves. So there will be a conscious focus on upskilling, improve, which will be in the form of conferences, seminars, faculty development programs. So the faculty will have to mandatorily go through these kind of skill upgradation, professional development, faculty development programs on a regular basis, and all this will be centrally accounted, and that will be very important. Technology will be very, very important. Embrace all kind of technology. And we are going to see hybrid classes. I'm telling you, many top universities in India are already discussing plans of not making buildings and classes. No classes. One fine morning, all these classes will become online. You can sit in your apartment, you can sit in your hostel room, you can sit in your home, attend the classes. You need to only come to college for practical exams, practical classes, practical instruction, field work, research, and so on. This is going to happen very soon. Already, it is going to be a blended model. Many things will be online, many things will be this thing, and we are already seeing that happen. And there will also be a kind of a synergy in terms of across disciplines. Across disciplines means you are I told you, 1 year you study, you get a certificate. Good. 2 years you study, you get a diploma. 3 years you get a degree. 5 years you may get a master's degree. So these flexibility, adaptability, transition, migration will become very easy. I give you a simple example. You do a certificate in engineering. 1 year you did engineering, you didn't like it, you somehow passed to the first year of engineering, you get a certificate. Now you are thinking, I want to go for journalism. So when you want to move after getting a certificate in engineering, second year you are jumping to journalism. Several courses that you studied in the engineering, like professional communication, English, mathematics, computer programming, those credits will be easily and seamlessly transferred to the journalism course. Doesn't mean that you may not need to learn a full year. You may be able to complete the journalism course instead of 2 years. You may be able to complete a BA or a BSc in 1.5 years. That flexibility, migration, all that is going to happen out of the box. It is going to be very flexible, very easy. See, I have lived in US for more than a year. I know how flexible it is. You may be studying a high tech robotics bachelor's program, but you want to take Spanish, you can take Spanish. It is allowed. There will be some minor credits that you can take. You can take anything. You can take drama as a minor. There are people, students who study robotics and drama. What is the relationship between drama and robotics? Nothing. But it is possible. That much flexibility, autonomy, adaptability is built into the system. So ultimately, India also has to move ahead, and this NEP is a very good light but very tight regulatory framework. It is going to come in a very big way, and it is going to impact each and every one of us. And in terms of research, research is also going to be very important for faculty. And all the research, see, now as a faculty, or the college will say, go apply for funded project. You have to go to DST, Science and Technology Ministry, or Biotechnology Department of the Science Ministry. All this will be integrated into a single research body, an NRF or a National Research Foundation. Everything will be combined. Now, even today, as an engineering college, AAA college will have to look at, Anna University will come for inspection to AAA college. AICT will come for evaluation of inspection of AAA college. NBA will come for accreditation. NIRF ranking is there. In India, unfortunately, we have a separate affiliating body. If you are a university, you are affiliated to UGC, which is a regulatory body. If you are a college like AAA college, you are affiliated to Anna University. So there is a separate regulatory body, UGC for universities, and for you for colleges which are affiliated to the university, it is that Anna University is the regulatory body. You have a separate statutory body. If you are doing an engineering college, all engineering programs have to be approved by AICT. If you are a medical college, you have to get approval of Medical Council of India. If you are a B.Ed college doing teacher education, you have to go to NCTE, another body. So separate statutory body, separate regulatory body, separate accreditation body. You have to go for NAC, it's a different body. You want to go for NBA, National Board for Engineering, another body. So multiple statutory, regulatory, accreditation, ranking bodies are there. The expectation or our hope is that all of these will be subsumed in the NEP, will make everything integrated into one. That is the hope that all of us have. So this is an overview of the NEP. Now quickly I will go through the various parts of the NEP, the national education policy, that are relevant for us, for higher education, so as to speak. I'm only going to higher education, those things. I already told you about this quality universities and colleges. The idea is higher education is extremely important, and we are seeing many colleges that are having no quality. I already told you 1,000 universities and 50,000 colleges. Many of them don't have any quality. Now the focus will be on every district. We are going to have a very good, large, multidisciplinary university which will take a lot of students. Big university. It will be like a hub of higher education, and this hub will be available in every district in India. The expectation is that it will definitely focus on advanced technology, curriculum, assessment, student centric teaching. Faculty will have freedom to do research. The colleges will have full freedom to decide their courses, their curriculum, their syllabus, and so on. And then they will be supported by the National Research Foundation. And one very interesting thing that is going to happen is this is going to be there is going to be these kind of three types of universities. A research intensive university where the focus will be on developing new technology and focusing on research. National institutions, if you take an Indian Institute of Science, IISc Bangalore, there is no almost no UG program, only PG and PhD programs, but they are having a lot of research projects that are advancing the country. They are developing innovation and research outcomes for the country. So there will that category of national institutions and few universities will be only focused on research. There will be some teaching intensive universities, which will focus on teaching and affiliation of colleges. Those faculty, those colleges need not do research. They can focus more on teaching and getting the best quality of students. And autonomous degree granting colleges, many colleges will become autonomous and you can give your own degree. If AAA college has got the infrastructure, has got the accreditation, has spent around 10 to 15 years of its thing, you can go for autonomy. And from when you get autonomy, automatically you will be able to give degrees. You will be able to make your own curriculum syllabus. You can connect with industries. All these things are going to happen. There is going to be full autonomy, provided you go through those quality yardsticks. And that is really going to change the institutional restructuring. Now, if there are faculty attending this meeting, many of you will agree with me. You have to teach this many courses. You have to teach I don't know, 18 to 20 or 22 hours of instruction. The colleges will also ask you to publish papers, because if you don't publish papers you won't come in the NIRF ranking. All these things are everywhere. This problem is there. I am an administrator, right? I am an administrator, but I am expected. I am also expected to publish research papers. Yeah, I may be extremely busy with so much of administrative work. I may have so many hours of teaching, but I am expected to do research also. That is a UGC norm. But what will happen is in the future, maybe faculty will be allowed to make a choice. I will prefer to informally it is happening, but a faculty can have a choice or a pathway. Then, I am not interested in research, I will go into teaching. I'll train my students to become the best, because I'm not interested in research, and I focus on that. Another faculty may say, no, I don't want this UG teaching is very difficult. When I have UG teaching, I have to correct so many assignments, I have to correct so many quizzes, assignments, periodical exams, and semester exams, but that is, I'm not able to do any research. So those people need not do these kind of things, exam duty and all. So eventually faculty will be able to make a choice with respect to these things. And one thing is, we are going to see a lot of I already told you this, we are going to see these artificial silos, like, I am an engineering student, I am a sciences student, I am a arts and humanities student. All these will disappear. There will be integration, there will be collaboration, there will be so much of flexibility. That dividing line between science, engineering, humanities, all will escape. I'll give you some examples myself. Suppose I have to just to give you an example. You may be a social work student. You are trying to go to a village and help the village. You are going to get a social work degree. And all of us know how technology is important, but you are good in engineering. You can apply your engineering knowledge, make some technology that will give the villagers some way of employment, and that will be the kind of flexibility that is there. So you may be social work degree, but you are very good in engineering, you are developing technology solutions, and vice versa also is there. So those barriers between humanities, sciences, technology, engineering, mathematics, this will disappear. It will be very learning outcomes focused. It will be very flexible. Flexibility in bachelor's, masters. I told you, 1 year you get a certificate, 2 years you get a diploma, 3 years you get a degree, maybe 4 years you get a second degree. That is possible. You will have multiple entry and exit points. You do engineering for 1 year, second year you can jump into journalism, with some additional credit you can manage. All this will become collated, it will be collected, collated, it will be captured, it will be stored in what is known as an academic bank of credit. Your credits will be stored that way. And I already told you technology, learning environments, pedagogy, better tools, better experiential learning, technology based learning. There will be a lot of focus on activities. I told you, instead of 6 labs and 2 theory, you will have 6 subjects. Each subject will have its own component lab, it will have its own project, mini project, or outcome that you have to show. It will be practical oriented. No, I gave a very wild idea. I'm just giving you a wild idea. Many of you have participated in Smart India Hackathon. I'm very proud that my teams have won 2 times the Smart India Hackathon. We have gone represented the country for the Singapore India Hackathon. We were part of the national hackathon team. One course, if you are doing a Smart India Hackathon product development, you are building an idea, you are converting the idea to a prototype, that prototype into a product, and that product into an innovation or a startup. It is equal to one course that you are studying. So students should be given a option. Okay, you did Smart India Hackathon, you got first prize, or you are a finalist. If you are a first prize, you get a full grade, A plus grade. If you are a finalist, you get a, say, a B plus grade. That can be used instead of one full elective course, because you have done the entire product development from idea to prototype, prototype to product, and product to innovation or startup. So all these things will be there. Plus, there will be a lot of technology, there will be a lot of online programs. All top universities are now evolving into dual mode universities. uh, in our university, we are so many programs are going to become fully online. BBA, I am told that I'm taking one course for the online BBA program. I am told by over a period of time the physical BBA program will vanish and it will become a fully online program. Like that, many programs will become dual, will become hybrid. Many programs may just vanish. For a BBA, you don't have that kind of engineering labs, and you don't have to go to a welding shop or a lathe shop. BBA is more of conceptual and theory. Yes, there are some software tools that you need to use. You need not come to the college, you can sit at home and do the program. So that kind of distant online education is going to come, but of course we need to maintain the quality. We are going to see a lot of foreign students going to come in, flexibility will be there. We are going to see a lot of collaborations. We're going to be see tie-ups. You can study 3 years here, 1 year abroad, you'll get dual degree. All these kind of things will come. Scholarships will increase. As usual, there will be a national scholarship portal for all, capturing everything. Indian universities that are very good will be able to start campuses in other countries. All these things are going to happen. I already told you this faculty. Faculty will be has to become evolved. Faculty have to be motivated. Faculty have to be adaptable. Faculty have to embrace technology. Faculty have to embrace change. Faculty will be given all kind of freedom for progression to hire this thing. Faculty will be have able to do all these things. Faculty will get complete freedom to develop the curriculum pedagogy. Faculty will be able to have their own track. I don't want, I want to do only research. Okay, less teaching, do research, show outcomes, show papers, show output. I want to do only teaching. Okay, you don't need to do research. Obviously, some promotion and all will be slow, but that is fine. These kind of things will come. I already told you about equity and inclusion. Throughout the country, there will be available for all. Tamil Nadu may have 6,500 engineers, 600 engineering colleges. Chhattisgarh may have only 30 or 40. All those things may change because of this equity improvement. All wherever the supply is less and the demand is more, they are going to promote new colleges, start new colleges, and so on. They're going to focus on B.Ed colleges in a very big way, teacher education, which is grounded in Indian values. Nowadays, B.Ed colleges all over the country, there is a problem for the quality that is going to come. They're going to be mentoring these teachers and so on. Vocational education, they are going to integrate vocational skills development within the program. Now, I'll tell you why it is important. You may be a very good electronics engineer, but if they ask you to do a crimping or do a soldering or a welding, soldering, you may not be able to do it. Right? It's quite natural. You may be very good in theory, but when you write a C program, you are not very good, because writing a program is a skill. It is not a it is knowledge is there, but you know the language, you know the syntax, you know the semantics. But even if you know the language, the syntax, and the semantics, you need to have a skill to write the program, right? That is not available. You should know which syntax to use, which logic to use. That is a skill. Same way, this kind of uh, circuit welding, what is that, soldering, you may not be knowing how to solder properly. So we need to have vocational some kind of training within the education. So the skill development for all programs, vocational kind of education, some kind of vocational skill development within the higher education will also be there. Now, some people are even talking of having a higher education plus vocational education. I already told you this. In NRF, all the research will be centralized through the NRF or National Research Foundation. Anybody and everybody, all the funding will be there. If anybody who has got an idea, who has got put a proposal, you don't have to run behind DST, DBT, ACT, UGC. You send a proposal. This NRF will be taking the lead, and easily the research process will become very seamless, very flexible, and easy to get funding. And I already told you the last one. See, I already told you separate statutory body like ACT, UGC, separate regulatory body like UGC and affiliating universities, separate accreditation body NAC and NBA, separate ranking body NIRF. All this will change. They will all combine these and have an umbrella institution. The idea is to have this Higher Education Commission of India, which will take care of everything and anything, whether it is ranking, whether it is accreditation, whether it is affiliation of you colleges, whether it is regulation of colleges, whether it is, all that will come under this umbrella. And all the research will come under the umbrella of the NRF, the National Research Foundation. All the funded projects that come from the government, from industry, everything will be combined. And finally, if you are having 15 years of good service as a higher education institution, you have got the requisite accreditation, you are ranked, you can become a own university and move ahead. Yeah, this is the I already told you, yeah, there is also a focus on adult education, professional education. Focus, I already told you about the importance of technology is going to be immersive. Technology is going to be ubiquitous. Technology is going to be all embracing. And many programs will go completely online. We are going to see hybrid models. We are going to see cutting edge technologies like AI, ML, blockchain going into everything and anything. You're a mechanical engineer, you need to know AI. You're a civil engineer, you need to know machine learning. You're a finance, finance, an accountant, you need to know blockchain. Those kind of things, technology will come, and they are proposing also a national educational technology forum to improve the teaching learning process, where all this comes in. And people are talking of AI plus X. Very interesting multidisciplinary idea of AI plus X, artificial intelligence plus commerce, artificial intelligence plus mechanical engineering, intelligence plus English literature. This is the idea that is going to come in the future. So that is what I wanted to stress upon. We are going to see the national education policy completely change our outlook, completely change the game as we move towards becoming a $5 trillion economy. In the words of our honorable Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi, becoming a $5 trillion economy, and for that, education is very, very important. Thank you very much for this opportunity for in the National Education Day. Thank you very much. Over to the organizers. If you have some questions, I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's very useful, sir. Sir, students,
Your voice is breaking.
is it audible, sir? Sir, can you
Yeah,
students are willing to ask questions, sir?
yeah. Please ask the question. I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, am I audible, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. Tell me. Yeah.
Sir, my question is, what is multiple entry and exit for UG courses?
Multiple entry and multiple exit means, I told you, you are studying, say, you study for 1 year, you don't like you're not, you feel you're not fit, you can come out with an diploma, with an a certificate. Means in your resume you can get, say, a certificate. You study for 2 years, you may get a diploma. You study for 3 years, you get a degree if you are doing an arts and science. If engineering, maybe 4 years. Yeah. So there are different exits. After 1 year, the exit is a certificate. After 2 years, the exit is a diploma. After 3 years, it is a degree. That is the thing. Now, multiple entry means, I told you the same example. 1 year you studied engineering, you got a certificate. Now you want to do a BA journalism course. You feel you're not good in engineering, you want to do journalism. So journalism BA or BSc is 2 years. But since you studied 1 year, you may be able to get into the second year of BA journalism with some extra credit, with some credit transfer, and maybe you may not be able to complete journalism in 1 year, but you may take another 6 months to complete. This is the meaning of multiple entry and multiple exit.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir, another one student is waiting, sir.
Pardon?
Sir, another one student is waiting to ask questions, sir.
Yeah, please ask. No problem. I am available. No problem.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
So, what are the qualification needs for a teacher under new education policy, sir?
See, with respect to teacher, as far as teaching is concerned, now the see, with respect to teacher qualification, there are see as today in today's situation, the moral of the story is that as per the UGC is University Grants Commission, and as per the UGC rule, to move ahead in as a teacher, you need a PhD degree. What is going to happen is that all any teacher, whatever be the teacher, whether you are a B.Ed college or an engineering or a pharmacy, or you will need to have a PhD. Without a PhD, it is not possible to progress in higher education in as a teacher. But then UGC has postponed that decision. Now, today, if you see, I don't know how many faculty are there in your college. I'm assuming it is 150. I'm assuming on an average, I'm just giving you a ballpark number, maybe 30 or 40 may have a PhD. Remaining 110 don't have a PhD. This is the situation in all colleges across the country. Same way, if you take our university, there are say 1,800, 2,000 faculty, maybe around 1,000 of them have got a PhD. So 50% only. So the idea is all colleges and universities will have to move till 100% PhD over a period of time. Having said that, UGC has postponed this decision to make it mandatory. Even today, it is not final, because you can't ask the people to leave. No, they have already joined 5 years back, 10 years back. So they have given a kind of a what should I say, a cooling off period. Maybe that next after 5 years, I my feeling is within the now it is 2021, rather it is 2022. By 2027 and 2028, without a PhD, you will not be able to teach in any college. That is going to happen. So it is a must. But once you get the PhD, you can decide, I don't want to, PhD is going to be a minimum qualification, but you can then decide, I am not interested in research. I'd rather be only a teacher or an admin. Those options may be available.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
In NEP, there is any change in board exam pattern?
Yeah, but that's a very good question, because board exams, as far as this +2 and all are concerned, there is definitely there are some the NEP is planning to have a system wherein these students who go to that what is that, coaching centers, no, these coaching centers, they give you a kind of, what should I say, they give you tips. They are not focusing too much on outcomes. They are focusing on how you crack the exam and how you crack the entrance exam and all the board exam and all that will change over a period of time. Even school education is going to be impacted, wherein just because you go on practicing multiple choice questions, you are able to do all those crack these board exams. It's not going to happen. Even the school education is going to be highly focused on outcomes and so on. So board exams patterns are likely to change. They may, and maybe not this year, next year, or the year after that, but they are also going to become more internal assessment. Continuous assessment may have. Forget the pandemic year. 1.5 years is gone. We can't do anything. It's gone. But after the pandemic subsides completely, we are going to see slowly things are going to change.
Thank you, sir. So, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So that's all, sir. Shall we wind the session, sir?
Yeah.
Sir, 1 second, sir.
Good afternoon to one and all present here. I thank our Honorable Chief Guest Dr. Prashant R. Nair for guiding us in the right path. Thank you, sir. I extend my gratitude thanks to management members and dignitaries and lovable principal Dr. M. Segar, sir, to grace a webinar even in the pandemic situation. Thank you, sir. I extend my wholehearted thanks to IIC President Dr. G. Vairamuthu, sir, and Convener Mr. M. S. Kalyana Sundaram, sir, and NTT faculty members to organize the webinar. Thank you all. Last but not least, I thank all my dear students and student coordinators, your contribution to make this webinar in a great success. Thank you all. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have given my contact details on this chat box. I don't know if it is visible to all of you. You can search for me on YouTube. There is a new, I just started the channel 2 months back. If you just search for my name, Prashant R Nair, Prashant space R space NAIR on YouTube. Facebook, you cannot become a friend, it is full, but you can follow my page. It will have all updates on higher education and all those things. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Goodbye. Stay safe. Have a nice time. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.